Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are, it is right now, you are right here. My name is Manuel, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. Today is day 28 of the show, and I have to congratulate you for making the best decision of the day to spend some time with me. Let's get started. So, here we go again. Tomorrow, Sunday, February 22nd, New York City is expecting up to a foot of snow. A foot! It's not a once in a century blizzard, not the apocalypse, not a snowmageddon, but it is a dang foot in New York City in February, which is not unheard of. So, what does the mayor do? He gets on camera and essentially says, in a pleading voice to the citizens of New York, you too can become an emergency snow shoveler. Just show up with your paperwork. Your paperwork. Now, think about this. This is New York City, one of the supposedly greatest cities in the world. Certainly one of the wealthiest cities on earth, one of the most taxed cities on earth, no doubt. And it's a city that absolutely knows that it gets snow. This is not Miami being surprised by frost. This is New York City. Snow is not a mystery there. And yet, just weeks ago, the city was paralyzed. Snow piled up, sidewalks untouched, streets clogged. It took weeks to clean up what should have been handled in days. The new administration of Mayor Mamdani immediately took a credibility hit right out of the gate. And now another storm is coming. So instead of projecting competence, instead of showing that the city learned, prepared, adjusted, and optimized its logistics, the pitch is, hey, citizens, come help us shovel. All right, now take a pause here. Think about this. Why would the largest, richest city in America need to scramble to recruit regular citizens to clear snow unless something is structurally broken? I'm not talking about an all hands on deck moment during a once in a century blizzard. I'm talking about a routine, heavy snowfall in a city that has existed for centuries and somehow hasn't mastered winter yet. But wait, it gets better. Let's talk about the ID requirements. To shovel snow in New York City for the people, you need 2 forms of ID. Minimum. Now, I'm not even arguing that employment verification is wrong. Of course, a city hiring temporary workers needs documentation. That's normal. They need photo ID. And 2 forms, that's fine. I understand that. But here's where the hypocrisy just explodes, blows up, boom. These are the same political voices who spent years arguing that voter ID laws are racist, that requiring identification to cast a ballot, something that is going to shape the future of the country, that was discriminatory. But to shovel snow, oh no. For that, we need 2 forms of ID. All right, we need your picture ID to shovel some snow. So ID is oppressive when it comes to voting, but mandatory when it comes to shoveling snow. That's not what I'd call a minor inconsistency. That's what can be called a narrative convenience. But here's the deeper issue. And we've spoken about this before when talking about Mayor Mamdani. When ideology outruns competence, reality eventually wins. You can promise utopia, you can talk about democratic socialism, you can talk about transformation, but snow doesn't care about ideology. Logistics don't care about rhetoric. And the infrastructure, it doesn't care about slogans. Snow responds to plows. Streets respond to manpower. Cities respond to management. And when management is thin, when executive experience is light, When governing was more theoretical than operational, reality exposes it quickly. And let me be very specific. Mayor Mamdani never held a real job in his life before becoming mayor. Let's not kid ourselves about that. That is simply a fact. A son of privilege who basically waltzed through life until the day he decided, why don't I run to become mayor of a city with a budget larger than most countries in the world and a population to boot that equals that. So even though that is something to recognize, this isn't about whether someone grew up in privilege. It isn't about whether someone calls themselves progressive or socialist or anything else. It's about the scale. Running for office is not the same as running a city. Advocacy, agitating, is not the same as execution. Talking about systems is not the same as managing those systems. So when someone like Mamdani leaps from theory to managing one of the largest economies on earth, winter is going to test you immediately. Now, let's do a slight reframe. People don't fail because of bad intentions. We're going to be generous here, right? We don't want to assume bad intentions on the part of Mayor Mamdani and his fellow Democratic Socialist cohorts. So the failure isn't from bad intentions. They fail because of bad systems. If your system requires emergency recruitment of shovelers every time it snows, that's not a moral failure, that's a systems failure. And the lesson is simple. Before you redesign society, make sure you can clear the sidewalks. Because voters, they will forgive ideology. They'll go ahead and debate philosophy with you, and sure, they will tolerate experiments. But they will not tolerate slipping on ice outside of their apartment for 3 weeks. Competence beats narrative. Remember that. We've mentioned it before. Competence beats narrative every time. All right. That's enough for today. We'll continue tomorrow. And as always, be useful.